Hello, my name is Lucinda. I'm an aspiring VTuber, but primarily I'm an artist. One of my art goals for this year is to complete a 30-day art challenge, which I did. Kind of. I knew it was going to be impossible for me to draw every single day for a month, so I found a challenge that had a more forgiving schedule, so as to speak. Introducing Drawtober. This is a month-long art event in October with 6 Halloween-themed prompts to be completed over 31 days. That meant that I had about 5 days for each prompt, which sounded pretty manageable to me. Plus, I really wanted to do something Halloween-themed for October, so this event was perfect. If you managed to submit your artwork for each prompt on time, you had the chance to be featured on that page as well. I never did get featured, but it was a good motivator for me to stick to the schedule and to finish the challenge. Anyway, here's how it went. The first prompt of the challenge was vampire, so I decided to draw a vampire to no one's surprise. This is Jules, and he is actually one of my original characters. His whole thing is that yes, he's a vampire, but he's a very useless one. He comes from a noble vampire family, and his father is a powerful vampire lord, but he's very weak himself, and he's definitely the type who would prefer to talk things out rather than to fight. He's also quite spoiled, and he doesn't like to drink blood directly from the victim per se, so he only ever drinks blood out of fancy goblets. He can shapeshift, but he can only turn into a tiny little Honduran white bat, which are in fact a real species of bat, and they're super cute. But there is one other thing about Jules, which is that he is not a real vampire. He's actually a dhampir, which means that he is half vampire and half human. So that is kind of why he's a little different from other vampires. His mother is a human, a witch actually, and I'll be drawing her later on as well for part of this challenge. Anyway, here's my completed piece for the first prompt of Drawtober. The second prompt of Drawtober was Shapeshifter, so naturally I wanted to draw a werewolf to go with my little vampire boy. This is Blake. He's another original character of mine, and he is, as you might expect, a werewolf. He was hired by Jules' father to be a bodyguard for his son, since Jules is totally unable to protect himself. Blake ends up becoming friends with Jules and eventually boyfriends. See, Blake's backstory is that he doesn't have any memories of his past. Prior to being hired by Jules' father, he was a prisoner and he was forced to fight for his life in an arena every day for the entertainment of his captors, who also happened to be vampires. Jules was the first person he could remember who treated him like a friend and like an equal. So even though Blake doesn't really like vampires or trust them, he finds himself getting attached to Jules and feels a protective urge towards him. A little cliche, I know, but hey, they're my characters and I can indulge in as many silly little tropes as I want. The third prompt of Drawtober was Witch, and for this prompt, I drew baby Jules with his human mother, who also happens to be a witch. Her name is Lilia, and she's the rather mysterious lady. Jules remembers her as a loving mother, but she kind of disappeared when he was still very young, so he doesn't really remember her all that well, and he feels a little hurt because he thinks she abandoned him. Which she did, but not by her own choice. She was abducted by a shady organization from her past and had her memories of her family wiped. The organization, known as the White Witches, are a group of humans with magical abilities who are trained to kill vampires. Lilia was raised by this organization, but decided to leave because she didn't believe in their cause anymore. However, now that she is forced to return to them, she has been effectively turned into an enemy of her vampire husband and son. Anyway, here's my third piece for Drawtober. The fourth prompt of Drawtober was Undead. This one is a little different from the first three because I don't have an OC that I would consider to be a zombie or anything like that. So the character I actually drew is called Lian Yu, and he's an antagonist from one of my stories. He is a dragon, and he is the former emperor of a country, let's just put it that way. But he was a tyrant and he was overthrown and killed. A couple of his loyal followers tried to bring him back to life, except he ended up being resurrected without any of his memories or his soul. So he's left as a sort of broken doll, a shell of his former self, which is, also sort of karma for the crimes he committed in his past. And here's my fourth piece for Drawtober. The fifth prompt of Drawtober was Ghost. This one, let's just say this one was a pain. I wanted to draw another original character of mine, who is actually from a little RPG Maker game that I've been working on. His name is Gale, and he's a ghost who haunts the mansion that he was murdered in, where he tries to pull off spooky tricks to scare off visitors that might become his murderer's next victims. But his pranks are just harmless little things like turning off all the lights or knocking vases over. Since this is part of a game, with the player's help, Gale will end up obtaining a mechanical body to possess and allow him to join the player's adventuring party. So yeah, for this piece I wanted to draw Gale in his ghost form together with his mechanical body, but poses. Man, poses are difficult. Anyway, here's my completed fifth piece for Drawtober. Okay, finally, we're at the last prompt. If the previous one was painful, this one was excruciating. The sixth and final prompt of Drawtober was Monster, and about 2 days before the submission deadline, I had the genius idea of drawing a bunch of OCs together dressed up for Halloween. Which was a terrible decision, because I had to do a fully colored piece with 5 different characters. And I had to do it in one single day because I had procrastinated up till that point. Anyway, I did it, somehow, and this is my final piece for Drawtober. It features Jules and Blake, the vampire and werewolf I drew for the first 2 prompts of Drawtober. I thought it'd be funny if Jules, the vampire, was dressed up as a werewolf, and Blake, the werewolf, was dressed up like a vampire. Blake is holding on to a little dog. Her name is Kath, and she is actually also another werewolf OC, and she's dressed as a pumpkin. In the background, we have Jules' parents. His mom, Lilia, the witch that I drew for the 3rd prompt, is dressed up like a vampire, while his dad, the vampire, is dressed up like a wizard. Even though this was so painful to finish, I am honestly amazed that I managed to complete it in time. So yeah, that was my completed Drawtober. I do feel pretty good that I managed to finish all the prompts in time, and I'm honestly pretty happy with every single piece that I made for this challenge. At least for now, but that's good enough for me to feel that this hasn't been a waste of time. I definitely prefer this challenge over the daily ones like Inktober, but I'm not sure if I'll be trying this one specifically again next year. It was a good experience and it motivated me to draw, but I think I like to try out different challenges. That's all for this video, and thanks for watching. If you like to watch me draw or just ramble about my OCs, why not subscribe? I also stream my art on Twitch every Saturday, so feel free to join me there if you like to watch me struggle with drawing.